I'm going to do a classic British dish today of bubble and squeak. It's a fun way to use up your leftovers. If you've got some leftover mashed potato or some leftover veggies, it's one of those dishes that was developed really to use up all of those leftovers after a Sunday roast, really. And I still love it to this day. It's a beautiful tasting dish. We eat it for breakfast, for lunch, or as a side for dinner sometimes as well. So I'm gonna make a very quick mashed potato. Unfortunately, I don't have any left over. I'm using a gorgeous Carisma potato, which is a beautiful Aussie potato, really versatile, great for roasting, but also for boiling. So it's one of those I love to have around in the cupboard. Just gonna dice it up, and I'm gonna pop it into my pot of cold water, which I'm gonna bring to the boil with the potatoes in it. I find you get less of a starch reaction doing it that way. Make sure your water is really nicely seasoned, which mine already is. All right, so I'm gonna pop this in. Pop that on to boil away. It's probably gonna take around 10 to 12 minutes until they're nice and soft. Don't wanna overboil it though, you know, they shouldn't be falling apart in the water. Now I'm gonna saute off my veggies so they're ready. So just bring in the pan to the heat. Nice little glug of olive oil. I'm gonna go in with my onions. And my carrot. I've just grated this carrot. I'm gonna saute these off until they're just starting to soften. I don't want too much color, so you're probably looking at about 3 to 4 minutes. And then I'm gonna add in the cabbage, get that sweated down, chop up my parsley. Once the potatoes are boiled, I'm gonna mash them up and then bring it all together to make our little cakes. Just passed our potato through our masher. Once the potatoes are cooked, obviously drain them off, guys, and then leave the lid on to just steam it and just to take some of that extra moisture out of the potatoes. It's the key to a really good mash, okay? Popped in my butter. I'm just gonna beat that through. This is an important part to make your mash a little bit lighter. Even for something like bubble and squeak, you don't want it to be heavy and stodgy. You want to really melt that butter through and give it a good old beating. No lumps, that's the key. Now, just got 1 egg yolk here, or 1 egg. You could use just the yolk. I don't need the egg white for anything else right now, so I'm just gonna use the whole egg and it's absolutely fine. So I'm just gonna whisk this up ready, and then I'm gonna fold through my veggies first. So now we're gonna pop our bubble and squeak mixture in. This really is an old school British dish. I grew up eating bubble and squeak. In my early years in restaurants, we had lots of different versions on breakfast menus and brunch menus. I actually thought it came from Scotland, but I think there's a version all over the UK. And it's just a great way of using up, you know, those veggies. And obviously, potatoes always a bit of a star in the UK. So we've got our mash going in there now. And I'm just gonna season it up. Generous amount of salt and a little bit of pepper. And then we're just gonna fold that through before I add the egg. And it just gives it that lift, that little bit of richness. All right, so I'm gonna add in the egg now to this. Just make sure your potato's still not too hot when you add that, because it will cook your egg. And we're just gonna stir that final bit through. It's almost a wettish mix. You don't want it too dry. So I've just got a little bit of water here now, which I'm just gonna rub over my hand. Very similar to when you're working with a beef patty almost. You can get a nicer shape and it doesn't stick as much. So I'm just gonna shape it now into my little patty. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil in my pan. And then just turn it out straight into your pan. And then you can hear that beautiful sizzle straight away, which is where it took its name from. the cooking of the vegetables, the cabbage, it makes that sort of bubble and squeak sound. So we're gonna cook it for about 4 to 5 minutes, nicely golden on the first side, flip it over, and a little bit less on the second. All right. Gorgeous colour on that. Traditionally, you would serve this with a beautiful fried egg on top, some HP sauce or something like that. But it's a beautiful thing by itself. Just a little bit of salt, touch of pepper. So simple. Next time you've got that leftover mashed potato, give Bubble and Squeak a try.